nowadays the swine industry is very advanced, so the feed plays a very important role in the meat quality. The second is the genetic. So for the decades of the selection, lean product is the most important characteristics during the selection, and sometimes it causes problems.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swine Canada, brought to you by 𝗺𝗷𝗀𝗃𝗃. I'm Aline Ramos, and I'm your host in this episode today. And we'll be talking about something that bridges science, genetics, consumers, and the consumer's plate, muscle physiology and pork quality. It's not just about growth rates and lean gains, it's about how muscle develops, transforms in post-mortem, and ends up as a high-quality meat in our market. Joining us today is Dr. Ian Huang, Associate Professor in Nutritional, Skeletal, Muscle, and Biology at the University of Arkansas. With training across China, South Korea, and US, Dr. Huang brings a global perspective to swine research, combining molecular biology, meat science, and animal nutrition. Dr. Huang, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Rimmer. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me here in the Swine podcast.
Dr. Huang, could you just tell us how you end up in this field? What brings you to work in meat quality?
Yeah, I grew up in China in the countryside, so I was surrounded by all kinds of livestock animals, chickens, pigs, sheep. So when I was young, I really became passionate to all the livestock animals, but the pigs is one of the most special one because it's the major protein source for most of the Chinese dishes. So when I came to the college, I chose the animal science as my major, and I went to a swine nutrition lab when I went to graduate school.
Oh, that is fascinating. So bringing you some very close to home memories
Yes.
every time. That's amazing. For you at home, if you care about meat quality and future of pork production, hit like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow swine enthusiasts. So let's start with the basics. What is the major biological or environmental factors that influence pork quality from farm to fork?
The most important is the diet. Nowadays, the swine industry is very advanced, so the feed plays a very important role in the meat quality. The second is the genetic. So for the decades of the selection, lean product is the most important characteristics during the selection, and sometimes it causes problems. So lean muscle contains a lot of type 2 fiber, fast fiber, and they are very easy to undergo glycolysis after slaughtered, and that will produce the PSE meat, and that's a high incidence in the meat quality problem in the pork.
There is anything that the farmer can do to avoid PSE?
The first thing is to avoid the short-term stress before the slaughter, so which may cause huge accumulation of the lactic acid that's drag the pH value down. So animal welfare recently is a hot topic. So make sure the animals are not stressed out. That's the first thing we can do. The second is select the best pig line breeds. Because some gene mutation also can contribute to like a porcine stress syndrome. So avoid these two.
There is some genetic studies that are helping to improve meat quality. Are you seeing any real change in that field?
There's a lot of research right now, but most of them are still very basic. Scientists try to figure out what are the most important genetic factors affect the meat quality. There are some studies in domestic pigs, the Italian Iberian pig, some Chinese Meishan pig, and some like large black pig from England. These pigs, they grow slower they have longer growing period, and they have much longer time for fatty acid deposition, some flavor compound to deposit. So scientists try to find out what are the genes differences between the current commercial pig and this domestic pig. Maybe some cell signaling pathways affected by the genetic difference. But most of them are still on textbook or in the lab. Not many have been translated to the practical industry work. So we're still working on that.
Yeah, so you said that one of the avenues to improve meat quality in general is through genetics. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, because the fat deposition or the adipogenesis has certain genetic or molecular pathways under control. But when we select for the lean growth, some of the molecular pathway has been inhibited or lost during selection. We try to bring them back, but we also do not want to compromise the growth rate or the feeding efficiency. Yeah, so that's the problem.
Yeah. And have you been working this field? What you have been working on recently?
We try to compare the genetic background difference between the large black pig and the commercial pig, white pigs. We use some RNA sequencing and some pathway analysis software, try to summarize some genetic differences that's related to the growth rate, feed efficiency, growth performance, and meat quality. This is a very just a rough study. We had some preliminary data, but for the study require more, funding source, more sample size, so more time and labor.
So in this study, you have two genetics, right?
Yeah, two genetic backgrounds.
You're following them during the growth, or you're sampling in specific points?
We sample the muscle. We use the biopsy. So during weaning, growing, and finishing around the 3 different timeline, and try to analyze the difference of the gene expression and molecular pathways differences in these different stages of their life.
Is there specific pathways that you're seeing that are altered?
There are several pathways as relative to the metabolism, mitochondrial synthesis and activities, myogenesis, adipogenesis. There are many of them. It's very hard to just summarize just one unique pathway to affect everything. So it is like a network between everything. It's hard to analyze.
I'm very focused on individual variability, right? And what we see that is, even within the same genetics, same weight, we have a lot of variability how the animals deposit lipid and proteins as they grow. And even when you're giving the same nutrition. So have you seen similar things? How are you addressing this issue in meat quality? Do you have same? Because I know lipid and protein is part of the meat quality, but sometimes there is more to it, right, than simply the amount of protein or lipids, right?
Yeah, the variation is huge in the reality in pig farm, in pig industry. So everything we did in the lab is pretty controlled. The environment is pretty well controlled. So if we transfer our findings to the practical, to the reality, we face a lot of challenges. So in the lab, in the farm, in the experimental farm, we focus on just one or two different factors. But in the reality, the environment, the feeding, the diet, the management, all contributes to the meat quality. So this is a big challenge.
Yeah. And how do you see that we will address this type of challenge in the future in research?
If things are allowed, we would like to have more variant in the settings, big animal sample numbers, but this all costs the money.
Yes.
Research funding is really a problem right now.
Yeah. So in terms of, you touch a little bit the subject, you said that's very important to address animal welfare and those late hours just before the animals go to the slaughterhouse. What do you see as if you have to get some tips for our listeners, what you would advise them to focus on to maximize meat quality in those, like, are you saying like, yeah, the whole growth is important, but there is a specific point in time that you have to pay special attention, or what will be the advice that you'll be giving?
I mean, the advice give to the producers, to the farmers.
Correct. Yeah, and you can also address like the nutritionists. We have several nutritionists that listen to us, so you can do a general one for the producers.
Yeah, to be honest, my work focuses on mostly the like genetic and molecular part. So talking about the actual practical to transport the pig or to maintain their welfare, I am not the best person to answer those questions. But recently, we are working on some project. We use the 𝗧𝗃𝗃 to feed the animals, so feed the pigs. So in different stages, like during the gestation, we feed the sows with the feed with the 𝗃𝗃𝗃. In the 𝗃𝗃𝗃, there are a lot of antioxidant, the polyphenol products. So during the lactation, these polyphenols will be consumed by the piglets too. And we thought the hypothesis is those polyphenols may help with maintain their antioxidant level in their body. So once they are weaned, they are be transported to the nursery house. This may help them to fight against the stress they experience during the transportation. So in the future, we want to expand this research to different life stages, like during the finishing or even before the slaughter. We want to see if the antioxidant may help with the minimize the stress.
Like if we bridge all together, you work a lot of genetics. Do you see if, for example, when you're giving polyphenols to the sows, is this passing to the litter, or is something like the effects of nutrition during gestation, they're affecting also meat quality, or is just you think it's just the nutrition during growth finish?
When we add the polyphenols to their diet, they will help to maintain the antioxidant level in their body, in fat tissue, in blood circulation, in the muscle tissue, and once they experience the stress, their metabolism has been changed, and they will produce a lot of the ROS, and the antioxidant will help to minimize the damage caused by the ROS. And that's the hypothesis.
That's very interesting. So just for you at home that is listening to us, what do you think makes great pork quality? What for you is important, and what would make you to choose pork? Leave your comments here, and if you have questions for Dr. Huang, make sure to write them down. Even if he cannot answer for us today, we might invite him back to answer those questions for you. And share your favorite pork cut with us once you're at it. So, Dr. Huang, you have worked in several places around the world. Do you see how pork quality is different around? There is cultural difference that would shape our market and your genetic selection. How do you see that?
Yeah, of course. I was in China and South Korea, and in these two countries, people like the pork with a little bit of fat in there because they believe it's improved the flavor. So there are a lot of domestic breeds, pig breeds in China and South Korea, and most of them they have the black skin and black hair in there. When I came to the States, we found that the pork here is pretty lean, and there are not many marblings we can see. So in my opinion, they taste a little bit worse compared to the pork in China and South Korea. So we believe that's because of the usage of paling and selection for the lean growth. So my research I tried to focus my research on how to improve the intramuscular fat development in these breeds, but also maintain their growth rate So
yeah, that is something that we talk a lot. That is not just about having fat, but where is the fat is deposited, right?
yes.
In your studies, have you found something that help us to improve a marble, like improve the intra-meat fat?
That's quite interesting because we know intramuscular fat or the marbling is the last fat deposits during the development. The first are the vesicle fat, subcutaneous fat, outside of the muscle, that's the intermuscular fat. So these are the fat we do not want, but intramuscular fat, that's the last one to deposit. So that usually deposit during the finishing stage. And if you have a longer finishing stage, you have more chance to develop these intramuscular fat or marbling, but also you compromise the growth rate, the feed cost. So there's some cutting edge studies show that the intramuscular fat, they have the same origin as the muscle tissue. So they may contain mitochondria. They can burn the fatty acid and produce heat. So they belongs to like the beige fat or brown fat, other than the white fat in the subcutaneous or in the visceral fat. So if there's a way we can like transfer some mitochondria into the white adipose tissue, we can turn them into brown adipose tissue and let them deposit inside of the muscle. So we can increase the marbling, increase the intramuscular fat. So that's some idea we had recently.
That is very interesting. And maybe it's just I don't know much about it. So I'm just thinking like when we think in muscle development, we're taught that there is like a pre-programmed amount of fibers, right? That you cannot change the amount of fiber. But that is not true for the lipids, right? So you probably can you actually manipulate better the fat tissue compared to the lean tissue?
Yeah, potentially yes. Like you said, there's no net increase of the muscle fiber numbers after birth, but the adipose size proliferation is still going on until like adolescence.
And how do we find a balance? Because for me, as someone who works with finishing pigs, a problem that we always have in the end of our trials is those animals continue to grow. They have a very fast growth rate, but it's no longer much protein. It's just fat, and we don't necessarily want that. So there is, you have been working a little bit in this field, right? There is, what can I do? Should I be that worried, or should I maybe think I'll have just a tastier meat in the end?
Yeah, the different kind of the fat tissue, they have different like triggers or marker genes or promoters. If we can find the unique promoter or upregulated gene for brown adipose tissue or intramuscular fat, we may specifically promote the growth for the marbling growth, and meanwhile inhibit or limit the growth of the subcutaneous fat or visceral fat.
That's nice.
So it requires more studies on the genetic pathways.
Yeah, we have been trying to modulate that with nutrition, and it always comes to a cost to growth, right? So I think it would be very nice to see something coming up from the genetic side and see what we can do in that way. Do you have any knowledge in how consumers look in the grocery and look at this meat quality, and if we scientists are addressing this correctly, if our view of meat quality actually meets the view of the consumer?
As a meat scientist or muscle biologist, we know that what the consumers want. The first is the appearance, the colors, the reflections, the marbling level. So most of our study focus on the same thing. So basically, we have the same interest as the consumers. So what they are looking for is what we are looking for. So there's not much differences, but meanwhile, we focus on those things, appearances, but we also want to improve the animal welfare, the growth rate, also produce more pork with more marble.
And as a general curiosity, do you have any tips for us when choosing our pork meat in the groceries, what we should be looking for?
Actually, I don't. My wife, she prefer domestic breeds, so she goes to grocery stores, try to find organic or black pig, domestic pig. She believes it's more like a rich flavor, have richer flavor.
So sometimes like you go and depending, they will put different lights, right? To show the meat in different colors, right?
Okay. Yeah. Actually, we have some. I have some colleagues in our department. They are working on the showcase, the light of the showcase, how that affected the cell force and the myoglobin lifetime. Uh, yeah, we have some professors working on that, but I'm not an expert on that.
That's also something that I think that is the full cycle, right? You do all the genetic nutrition work, and then in the end, we still have to find a way to show that product in a light or in a way that is attractive for the consumer.
Yeah, I agree.
So here we're heading towards the end of our episode, and I will ask some other questions not related to science. But before I go to that, Dr. Huang, there is anything that you'd like to add, a take-home message for our listeners that you would like to leave?
Actually, just one thing. I think animal science or swine nutrition is a really interesting and useful science field, and I encourage more and more young scientists, people to come to this field.
Indeed, we need more young scientists, more young animal scientists working in this field.
It's time for our famous three.
Fumonigens are one of the most prevalent mycotoxins in North America and can impact the performance of your feed and your pigs. 𝗍𝗫𝗀𝗃𝗃 is the first ever CFIA-approved purified enzyme to specifically and irreversibly degrade fumonigens into non-toxic metabolites. Protect your pigs from fumonigens with 𝗍𝗫𝗃𝗃. Learn more at dsm-firmenich.com/mycofix.
So, Dr. Huang, what is your favorite swine or meat science related book or resource? The one that you always go to?
I think I'm a pretty new generation of researchers, so I do not just read textbook. I go to internet quite a lot. Once I have a question, I first just Google it. There's almost you can find answers to any of the questions, but just be careful. Not everything you read from the internet is accurate, so it's important to use your own judgment.
That's right.
So there's not many textbook I use, but since I teach animal growth and development, so some textbook like the traditional textbook, still I have them in hands. So just in case I lost my internet connection.
Yes, of course. And I think you'll say something interesting, like even in terms of papers, right? Published peer-reviewed papers, I think we have to be careful and really read through those material methods to make sure that is applicable to a different situation. So I think it's a very fair and valid point there. Outside of science, there is a favorite book or magazine or anything outside agriculture that you enjoy and you recommend?
Oh yeah, I really enjoy science fiction novels, movies. My favorite science fiction novel when I was a kid it's called Way Station. It was published in 1960s, something like that. It won Hugo Award. And recently is the three-body problem. So I have that in my office actually. The three-body problem. It's a really good one. It won Hugo Award, and these science fiction novels or movies, they broaden my knowledge and my perspective, and sometimes inspire me to think outside of the box.
Yeah, I like those too.
When I teach the meat science course, I ask my students one question. So in the future, we'll have long space traveling. We may have colonies on Mars. So eventually, we may bring animal science to Mars. So with that low gravity environment, how do you predict the change is going to happen in the animal science field?
That is fantastic.
how to improve meat quality in low gravity environment, something like that.
Wow. That is, I have no idea how to answer that one.
Come to my class, I'll teach you.
I might take you up in that offer. Our final question is, what do you think sets successful animal scientists or professionals in general that work in swine apart from those that are not successful?
During these years working in animal science, I have met a lot of excellent, brilliant, outstanding animal scientists, swine nutritionists. I think I saw something common in there. They dedicate their passion in their work, contribute their time to their hard work, but also show empathy towards colleagues and the team members, and keep a good balance between work and life. And finally, my suggestion, maybe do not be afraid of failure, because failure is the mother of success. And most importantly, being a successful professional isn't everything in life. Sometimes it's okay to just be ordinary.
That is actually fantastic advice, and I very much appreciate that. I actually really take that to heart.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of 𝗺𝗺 Canada by 𝗺𝗺, brought to you by 𝗺𝗺. And a huge thank you to Dr. Huang for this fascinating discussion on muscle physiology, genetics, and the future of pork quality, even in Mars.
Thanks for having me here. Swine it.
If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and students. Visit 𝗺𝗺.com for more conversations on science and practice of modern swine production. So if you want to leave some questions, please leave the questions for us. Tag someone, tag your favorite research in the topic, and help me to thank Dr. Huang for giving his time and discussing with us. Thank you for listening to us, and see you in the next time. This is Aline Ramos, your host, signing off.
Bye-bye.